and one.
Welcome attendees to the webinar titled Vertical Farming Opportunities in the Middle East. And this webinar is being conducted ahead of the 5th edition of Global Vertical Farming Show in Dubai this year, again in the month of September. The dates are 10th and 11th. I am Afsheen Siddiqui, conference producer for the Global Vertical Farming Show and your host for this webinar today. So we have an esteemed speakers in this webinars panel today who are experts in the field of vertical farming and sustainability, and I'm honored to welcome all of them. So we have Faris, Farraq, founder and MD at Bustan Aquaponics. We have Dr. Aftab Alam, lead scientist at Innovation Oasis. Roma Vora, co-founder of Aranya Farms. Abdel Rahman Alzubaidi, CEO at Ivvest. So let's welcome all the speakers. Hello, everyone. Now let's dive into the discussion. Our first speaker, Dr. Aftab Alam. Dr. Alam, please tell us how the concept of vertical farming is being received in the Middle East region.
The concept of vertical farming has been received very wholeheartedly in the Middle East, basically because we have two important things here to consider. One is the constraint to the agriculture production, and the second thing is the advantages that we have. Constraint include the food security. That's a major issue here for all the governments, particularly after the pandemic. Most of the governments in the Middle East are alarmed. And the second thing is high imports. Most of the commodities, particularly agriculture commodities, are being imported from many countries around us. And during pandemic or any conflicts, there is always an issue. So food security and high imports are the major constraints that we are facing. The unique challenges of agriculture are the other constraint that we have: very high temperature, very high humidity in certain months, non-arable land. Most of the land is basically sandy soil. And of course, water scarcity. We almost are running out of the water. Whatever water is left is basically saline water underground. The advantages that we have are basically plenty. The investors are here. They are looking for lucrative projects, something like vertical agriculture. We have issues with the production of agriculture crops. So of course, this is a solution for producing more intensive in the cities using high technologies. So this is another thing. We have relatively, less costly energy. So this is another thing. And of course, we have access to manpower that in Europe and North America is an issue. It was extremely difficult for me to find people working in agriculture sector in New York. That finally we tried to do automation. That is expensive capex on opex wise. So these are the things that are basically making it very, very good for vertical agriculture companies to come from Europe and North America to start doing business, and the local companies as well to develop vertical farming solutions in this region, the entire MENA region.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think vertical farming has recently been gaining traction as a potential solution for the challenges in the food security and, of course, the resource scarcity in the Middle East region. Now, would you also like to highlight certain opportunities for commercial opportunities for the international companies, or let's say the international people, to come and do business in the Middle East region?
Yeah, definitely. There is a huge opportunity. Opportunity number one basically is for crop diversification. They need to find some premium crops to sell, because the other constraint is that Middle Eastern region is not the region for leafy greens or microgreen greens that are very popular in the North America, also in Europe. So they need to find something else like strawberries and blueberries. Those are primary, kind of berries that are being produced in vertical agriculture and that have premium pricing all over the world and here as well. People are getting more health conscious as well, so they are moving towards berries. So similarly, we need to get some more crops to be tried in vertical agriculture. There are certain, nurseries that are being developed under vertical farming. We were trying to do it when I was working at Aero Farms. We were trying to grow cocoa plants in Aero Farm nursery in a vertical system. We were also trying to get some kind of bushy tomato plants for vertical agriculture. So these kinds of opportunities that are actually developing here in this particular part of the world, where new crops can be tried, and we can certainly do some kind of breeding experiments, some kind of new businesses like high value nurseries we can develop in vertical farming. These are the opportunities. The challenges are plenty. The number one challenge is cost of production. We need to bring it down so that we can compete with the imports that are extremely cheap. Second thing is lowering, capex and opex. So that will directly actually result into lower cost of production, and implementing new technologies. Uh, for example, we are already implementing automated monitoring. We are bringing robotics and drones also in action so that we can minimize the time we spend in farming, and somehow we can bring down the cost of production of most of the vegetables.
Sure. So nicely pointed out, although there are various challenges, but I feel there are also opportunities for innovations, like you mentioned, in the crop diversification and technologies for the crop yield. And this ultimately, vertical farming practices would reduce the environmental impact. And the best part is that Middle East region is welcoming international players to bring their solutions and technologies and innovations on the table, which would ultimately optimize the whole process of vertical farming. So now coming to Roma. Roma is the co-founder of Aranya Farms in UAE. So Roma, how can traditional farming practices be integrated into the vertical farming systems in Gulf region to enhance the sustainability and the yield quality?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So at Aranya Farms, we started off being a completely hydroponic farm. And then 2 years ago, we actually moved into being an organic farm. And we still use a lot of hydroponic, and we're still continuously looking to vertical farming opportunities to integrate into our organic farm. So one of the main things is, in organic farming, we emphasize just using natural inputs, and the principle, I think, can be seamlessly integrated into vertical farming. For instance, just the use of organic fertilizer and pesticides, significantly reducing the environmental impact of vertical farming operations, I think. So that's kind of combining the efficiency and space-saving benefits of vertical farming with their sustainability and health benefits of organic farming. I think that is an important way to build a more resilient agricultural system.
Sure. And while also enhancing the quality of the produce. Yeah.
Yes.
So, what are the most important and urgent issues you feel should be solved to support the growth of vertical farming in the region in Middle East?
So I think it's going back to what Dr. Aftab said, right? I think it's just the crop diversity. It's even when we had a vertical farm on our system, we were primarily vertical farming system on our farm. We were primarily using it to grow leafy greens. Sorry, to basically use it for growing leafy greens and microgreens. And I think the crop diversity is the one thing that me as a farm owner is really looking to vertical farming to change the game. So things that we are using it on our farm for vertical farming is we're using it to grow, we're using it as a nursery to grow seedlings that can be transplanted into traditional kind of soil-based farming once they're robust enough. I think this ensures like a higher survival rate of plants. It reduces the time for it to mature, and also allows us to kind of diversify, especially in the summertime, grow just more than your regular cucumber and tomato, and try to grow a few other things that I otherwise wouldn't grow so well in the summertime. So using vertical farming as a nursery is one. And then second is, We're trying to do this more on my own farm as well, but using it to kind of build more robust seeds, and using it as an R&D center, using vertical farming as an R&D center where we can kind of breed and test new crop varieties, and just to grow healthier plants that can sustain our hot and arid climates. Like we've done this in the past, especially in the winter when we grow in the soils. And now the idea is to try to do that using vertical farms.
Absolutely. And with crop diversity, I think we should also focus on addressing to the regulatory frameworks and access to the funding, because this sector needs a lot of investments for the growth, and knowledge sharing then again becomes crucial for the growth of the complete vertical farming in the region. Right. So, which brings me to Faris. Faris is the founder and MD at Bustan Aquaponics. Faris, please enlighten us more on what role can government policies play in supporting the expansion of vertical farming?
Yes, good morning, and thank you for the invitation to speak at this what I would consider a very important aspect of the food security of our region. At Bustan Aquaponics, we are primarily an aquaponics farm, but we have, as the hydroponics side, looked into different vertical farming aspects, as it's really, it is a subset of hydroponics and more importantly, a subset of controlled environment agriculture. The reason that I chose these particular subjects, which are a little bit more high level rather than the operational side, is we have been operating for over 12 years now in Egypt, in the desert, and have faced, like all of the other growers on this panel and that are listening in the audience, a multitude of challenges, most of which have been discussed already in one form or another. So really, in terms of the policy and the partnerships and collaboration, I chose these two questions because there's a very large amount of overlap, if not one is a subset of the other. In terms of the policy, I would refer back to what Dr. Aftab was saying, that really it is this nexus between food and, more importantly, nutritional security, the water and the weather and the lack thereof, or the extremes that we have, and energy. And once you start looking at this in a sort of a regional, because these are regional issues, these are not specific to any one city or one country. This is in the Middle East. This will continue to be the biggest challenge that we have. As Dr. Aftab was saying, we saw during COVID, what happens if shipping shuts down? We are extremely dependent on imports, and this it moves from food security to national security issues. So this whole concept of vertical farming, and I would widen it out further to all sorts of controlled environment agriculture, particularly the ones that circulating water systems and that are very water efficient. It really, the way I see it from a policy structure, a very good example that I've seen on a global level is the Dutch model, which they, in some form or another, consider it a golden triangle, which is basically that the policy side of it brings together three critical factors of sort of the academia and research institutions on one hand. On the other hand, you have the sort of the finance, policy, and government. And of course, you have the grower or the private participants that are doing the growing themselves. It is a triangle, but they all feed from and to each other. Now, providing the policy framework that pushes and incentivizes both academic and research institutions to do both hard science research in horticulture, in aquaculture, in the tech AI side, heavily supported by the research institutions like the SILEL, the innovation project, the innovation Oasis, and many other organizations that have been around for quite some time, both in most countries in the Middle East and North Africa, to really empower and incentivize them to solve the issues that are present now, not just hard science, but very sort of current and effective problem solving. The best way to do this is by talking to the growers. What issues do growers have? So in this sense, the policy framework can concentrate on biosaline solutions, on crop selection, crop resilience, crop diversification, which is a critical issue for all of us. Although we have been able to grow everything from watermelons to pretty much name it in an aquaponic system, really it is about, at the end of the day, this is an economic model. Although I've been a grower for 15 years now, my previous experience was as a banker and in finance. If your model is not financially sustainable, then it is not sustainable. It's a charity. And this is where policy can help. Policy that allows land license to be sort of given be given is very important in order to be able to compete as Dr. Aftab was saying, with just incredibly cheap imports. And in addition to that, the research that can go into, as Roma was saying, the biofertilizers, biological pest control, all of these things will make our product more resilient. It'll be healthier. And these in and of themselves can then become their own centers of research and of a push from the research and academic side into the growing and actual implementation side. It is critical that this is a two-way conversation, that it goes back and forth, and that it is iterative, that it continues to dig deeper into the problems to find how to scale, how to find crop diversification, how to reduce energy, how to grow in the environment that we are talking about. I would definitely include aquaculture as well. Obviously, as an aquaponics operator, we deal with fish and plants together. These are living organic systems rather than the purely hydroponic chemical systems. But even the hydroponic systems are now changing significantly in terms of using organic fertilizers and biological pest control. And of course, the finance side, which these structures can be well supported by the many, and especially in the United Arab Emirates, there are a multitude, and pardon the term, but they are very much linked in working between the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Agriculture, and all of the technology, the universities and the research institutes. But especially on the finance side, there is policy frameworks that revolve around land, around capital expenditure, which is a critical issue for all of us. Operating expenditure is manageable, or is more manageable, but CapEx is the big one. And there are many different financial models and techniques that can and have been used in order to support industries at the initial stages until you get to scale, both as individual operators, but also as an ecosystem. And the ecosystem part of it is really the critical part that then moves us into the second question that I chose to work with, which is the partnerships and collaborations. Now, all of us are very, very aware in this field that this is a multidisciplinary approach. I mean, especially any sort of controlled environment agriculture, you need to have expert knowledge in horticulture, possibly aquaculture, construction engineering, renewable energies, controlled environment greenhouses, the technology and the sensoring equipment that goes in them, the testing, the censoring, the labs that you need in order to test your quality, your water quality, and all of this. And these partnerships and collaborations, we have personally experienced at Bustan Aquaponics. We have worked with multiple academic institutions like Wageningen University and other large universities in Egypt and outside, in order to really begin to understand where these partnerships and collaborations are. Now, the Innovation Oasis is clearly a leader in this. They are, they're working on one of my dream projects, and has been for over a decade, which is a seawater-based greenhouse. This would involve what I would consider, but a greenhouse with two lines underneath green. Green meaning that we can, use it using renewable energies, taking salt water, desalinating in a renewable energy capacity, circulating that water into greenhouses. Now, all of these technologies have been available for over 50 years. It is a matter of integrating them, scaling them, and bringing the price down so that we go back to the financial model, that it becomes financially sustainable. I think the more collaboration, the more partnerships with sensoring and AI and all of the newer technologies that are coming in, and then really clustering them around each other. So there can be vertical clustering and there's horizontal clustering. Obviously, there's the physical clustering. El Ain as a region, I've been there quite a few times. There are the sprouts of this clustering concept where you have the growers, the farms, whether they are vertical or any other kind of controlled environment or any kind of farming. Once you have that, you can integrate suppliers, packers, pack houses, all of the issues, and critically, quality control and distribution, right? Distribution for small operators, for startup companies, distribution and logistics becomes one of the biggest issues. Now, partnering with, and we have done so on and off, varying degrees of success, with delivery companies and things like that is doable. It requires a very, very unique sort of setup because of the perishability of the products that we deal with. So cold chaining and all of these things. When you cluster these things physically, it helps. But you can also do vertical clustering where, the manufacturing side of greenhouses, of the actual modules for vertical farming. Now, vertical farming does not have to be container-based. It can be, it comes in many flavors. But the agri-technology, the research and development that is critical, and then you try to combine all of these things diagonally, horizontally, so you get this system that comes together. Now, really, in conclusion, that really means more of a coral reef setup rather than a top-down approach. You need to build ecosystems that support each other, that communicate with each other, and that feed each other. One will help the other, and you start building the knowledge retention, the intellectual property, and the research and development that will allow the region to become a leader in this rather than having to import. But at first, you import, you build, and then you become sustainable, then you export your knowledge. Thank you very much. Sorry, one final point. It's the rewards and the incentivization. You must reward success. There cannot be the fear of failure. We have learned the most of what we have learned on many levels from the failures that we have made. Failure is not failure. It's just a part of the learning process that allows you not to make the same mistake again, as long as you learn from your mistakes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Faris, for sharing your thoughts with us. And I completely agree that government support would definitely play a crucial role, when it comes to fostering a conducive environment for the investments, especially in the technological advancements to grow the complete vertical farming sector. And of course, the thing you said about the partnerships, it is essential that all the R&D institutions, the technology providers, more agriculture associations and organizations, and including the local community, should come together for the essential knowledge sharing and the overall market development of this industry. So what I want to tell you here is that this is exactly what our event Global Vertical Farming Show will facilitate, finding the right partners to propel business growth and industry expansion. So now to get more information, a different perspective, let's go to Abdel Rahman. Abdel Rahman, please, what are your views on the economic implications of investing in a vertical farming project in Middle East?
Thank you again, Afsheen, for inviting me to join you. So if we look at the market of GCC, again, as Dr. Aftab maybe started with, GCC imports more than 80% of the food, but in specific, when we're talking vegetables, we're talking about more than 56% of the vegetables consumed in GCC is actually imported. And this is a huge market opportunity of more than $7.6 billion to start with. If we were able to cover only 10% of that, you can imagine the amount of opportunities we can create and the amount of business investment opportunities we can create. So indoor farming or indoor vertical farming represents a perfect scenario for GCC, where less than 2% of our lands are actually considered arable. Again, making arable lands, which are lands where we can actually do agriculture from. And this is, again, indoor farming enables us to overcome this challenge, enabling us to produce our food anywhere. And although the harsh climate is way higher in comparison with the other regions, it's going to be even harsher with the climate change. And we've seen some of this implications in the past couple of weeks in Dubai, and specific in UAE in general. So in addition to what my colleagues have also mentioned about the energy costs, which is also allowing the GCC to become one of the most important hubs for R&D. And having this kind of market need in purchasing power and demand, along with a good and an accelerated R&D facilities working on developing this technology, will not only enable us to better use or get the best of this technology, but also enable us to achieve what Mr. Faris have mentioned a couple of minutes ago, which is about to become one of the most important exporters for such a technology. R&D hubs will enable us to also become one of the exporters of this kind of technology. And again, we have the need, we have the market, and we have the energy. We have everything. We have the infrastructure to make this technology happen. So in a market that is globally ranging between 30 to 38 billion US dollars, it is a huge investment opportunity, again, whether on the food side or on the technology side.
Right. So I think other than leading to food security and food sufficiency, I think this will help in contributing to the diversification and resilience of the regional economy, as other speakers also mentioned. So the next question, Abdul Rahman, for you is, how can vertical farming initiatives in the Middle East be scalable and sustainable if we consider it in the long term?
It's a great question. So the answer is actually in two words. Efficiency and accessibility. And this is actually why we started Ivvest back in 2020, because we couldn't find an efficient solution that is enabling us to also be financially feasible, a solution that is accessible. And when we looked at available options, only greenhouses existed back then, and it was highly expensive with a payback period of 7 years plus. Indoor farming solutions were not even an option because it was much more expensive. So finding and creating an efficient and accessible solution would be the answer. And to do that, maybe this is connecting again to the R&D concepts or part that we just mentioned. But to do that, this will enable us to overcome or to get the benefit of the indoor farming when it comes to overcoming the day-to-day operational risks, as well as getting the benefit of the opportunities within the market if we were able to become financially feasible. And efficiency is not actually only about robotization or automation, because we've seen examples of extreme automation and robotization that resulted in lower efficiency, and that happened in several companies in Europe. It's actually about the good, simple, and efficient design. And I'm really proud to be to having Ivvest as an example to creating such solutions that are highly efficient from the region to the region, and that is showing great results when it comes to reducing more than 40% of energy consumption and producing tons of food, which we're producing around 200 plants per meter square. And this is, again, just reflecting back the needs of the market, the targeted prices, and we're able to sell at wholesale prices, which is, again, one of the most important challenges that we've had for us to become able to have indoor farming as an accessible, and for indoor farming to be considered actually as an option or as an alternative for greenhouses. Previously, it was only considered an additional technology or methodology so that you can produce more gourmet products. So again, efficiency and accessibility, making this technology more efficient, making it more accessible will enable us to scale, which enable us to become more sustainable. And connecting that with R&D definitely will boost this ambitions.
Absolutely, rightly said. Efficiency and accessibility. I think efficient technology adoption, then proper resource management. In addition to this, global market linkages and collaboration within the vertical farming ecosystem, including the R&D centers. So will lead the way forward. Dr. Aftab, I would quickly come back to you again if you have any concluding remarks before we end this webinar.
Certainly, I am enlightened with a very good discussion that we had with Faris and Abdel Rahman. I know Abdel Rahman very well. Faris, I mean, I know only recently about his venture. I have been doing aquaponics since 1998, so almost 27 years in Saudi Arabia, and then of course New York and Dallas, and now here we have just started one small aquaponics project. So as we already mentioned, everyone has mentioned this. We have food security issues. We have cheap imports. We have advantages. We have disadvantages. So this is a very strong mix for new technologies to be implemented, to be adopted, to be generated from this region, and then applied. We have investment. There is no, deficiency of good people as well, good investors, some very good researchers. And as you already mentioned, that we need to have integration of international local partners and R&D centers, the universities. Right now, Silal is working with almost all the national universities here. United Arab Emirates University, Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence, Khalifa University. We are talking and working with almost all these universities to develop and integrate the technology to make the vertical farming more efficient, more accessible, and more user-friendly. It should not actually let the people, just go back to the traditional farming, using lots of resources to produce less. We would like just to make it more popular among the local people. We are trying to upgrade our farmers. There are around 1,000 farmers working with Silal. So we are trying to upgrade their facilities, trying to upgrade their skills, and slowly bringing vertical farming into the main force of agriculture production. So that comprehensive effort that should integrate all the things together and bring it to face the world is our approach at Silal. So we have been doing mostly indoor agriculture in greenhouses, etc. But recently we have been working with several international and national farms, vertical farms, to do the vertical farming as well. We have actually requirement from our government, from our wholesalers and distributors for certain crops that we can grow for sure in vertical farming. Say, for example, onions, potatoes, carrots, and all those things other than leafy greens or microgreens, baby greens. So all these things are putting us on the right, path for moving forward with vertical agriculture. I'm sure vertical agriculture is going to stay here and will be a strong technology for the future.
Absolutely. And so we come to the end of this webinar, which highlighted the need for a holistic approach to sustainability, interconnected nature, and favorable policies from the government, international engagement, and innovation that is required for the growth of vertical farming in the GCC region. So thank you so much to all our speakers today for their thoughtful enlightenments. And we look forward to see you all at the Vertical Farming Show in Dubai in September. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.